Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vulnerability Time podcast. I am your host, published author, and PhD candidate, Josias Abriel. Before we get started, folks, just a couple quick announcements. One, the show is now accepting donations. We need to get a new laptop to continue the show. So I have a Cash App in the episode description below. You just click on the link tree and you can donate. Anything helps. There's this used laptop that I was looking at, and it's about $600 something. So that I will be needing to get that to. I found like the best and cheapest used laptop to be able to record the show, because the current laptop, she's dying on us, folks, and the software and the updates, it's starting to do its thing again. So if you would like to donate to help the show out, please do so. Anything helps. Also, if you are listening on YouTube, give this a like. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give this a 5-star rating. It will help the algorithm. I do need 10 more 5 stars to continue the show. So if you could please do that, I would truly appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Okay, so this is part 2, folks. I'll figure out the episode title
Okay.
after this episode. But Craig is back. We're in part 2. So Craig, what were we going to? I remember, but just for
Yeah.
conversation's sake, what
Well,
were we going to talk about for part 2, Craig?
well, in the first part, we talked a lot about hypnotherapy and what it is and what it isn't, and the myths and misconceptions, as well as how it can help help with subconscious issues of your mindset, the breaks you may be putting on in terms of various parts of your life, even the hurt and pain somebody has dealt with or is dealing with in their life, the trauma, and how you can find resolution. You can find healing around that using these various techniques and tools. Because hypnotherapy in and of itself is just a umbrella term under which all these different techniques and tools. But what we kind of touched upon a tiny little bit in that first part, and then what was exciting about coming back and doing a little bit deeper is the more spiritual work that these techniques offer. And we can go in any sort of direction leads us. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of tangents. There's a lot of branches off this tree, that's for sure. But whether that's more like past life regression kind of work, or just more of the spiritual hypnotherapy of somebody trying to more ground themselves in spirituality and connection with the divine. Again, however that shows up for you, more work that you find in books like Michael Newton's Journey of Souls, that life between lives work of not, it's not so much a past life regression, but remembering being a soul before you incarnate here on earth, maybe for the 100th time. But a lot of healing can happen in there too. And so we can go in any sort of direction you want to, or your listeners want to, and open book. Yeah, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, I recently had a past life regression,
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
and I'm excited to talk about that. I will just say this: to me, it was very spiritual.
Yeah.
Because um, I already knew, because of my near-death experience and going on to the other side. I already knew that Earth is not really a place that I'm from or have been here a lot, right?
Yeah.
So during this past life regression, right of fact, I couldn't feel my hands
Hmm.
during the. That was just something random. I thought that was pretty cool, but I
Yeah.
literally couldn't feel my hands. But I saw 2 past lives, and they were not on.
Oh, wild. Yeah.
And I was like, that makes sense, because my NDE, it said like I volunteered. So I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, well, clearly that must be. I not from here, right?
Mhm.
So they were not on Earth. And um, I guess I'll just stop there and open
Okay.
it up for
Well, and this is really interesting. Let's just jump into the deep end.
yes.
Um, and and if you're still sticking with us, because this is going to be an interesting conversation, uh, and it may sound unique and fantastical of people having these experiences, but let's just kind of look at it, uh, the ideas around this, the theories around this, in that people the reincarnation theories, the theories that allow us to access past life memories, and what you experienced, what other people experienced. It's not like time travel. It's not Back to the Future. You're not Marty McFly in Back to the Future. You're not going back in time. You're having memories, just like you might have memories of high school, good, bad, or indifferent. Whether you're having memories of your earliest memories as a kid, maybe going to somebody's birthday party when you're 6 years old or something. Uh, these are memories. You're not going back to that time. And however you experience those memories, some people are not so visual. Maybe you just kind of know the information of high school, and the earliest memories, or what you did last month in terms of a vacation or a trip or something. So the idea is that we're coming back again and again as a learning experience, as souls, as these spirit beings. And this earth is like a classroom. We're coming back to experience certain situations, events, and circumstances in order to forward our growth and our learning and our development as souls. We bring maybe with us our soul family, our soul group, our soul friends to help us with this. Not unlike, say, a group of actors in a local theater troupe. Every town has that local theater troupe. And every year they do 6 or 7 different plays during the year. And in January, they decide we're going to do this play. This is how these characters are going to go from the first act to the third act and learn and grow as characters. Here are the issues they're going to have to deal with and hopefully resolve by the end of the third act. And here's who's playing what role, the costumes we're going to play, what time period we're going to make this play in. They do this play, and then they take a break. And then in March, they do an entirely different play. And they all play different characters and wear different costumes in a really different time period. Maybe they go back in time. Maybe they go into the future. Maybe it's just around the same time period. Maybe there's a theme throughout the year of all these different plays they're doing. And they start back in ancient Greece. And then they go to the 1800s, and then they do a play from the 1960s. And they keep going until maybe a more modern era. Maybe it's just random, and they're picking plays from around to learn different things. But it's the same actors. They just are playing different roles, and they're coming back to help each other. And so the idea is that we're doing this over and over again. Where this information comes from is actually a lot of the science. And that's what I wrote my book, the Past Lives Guidebook. It's not so much about people's stories. Those books are interesting and fascinating, but it's about the theories behind consciousness and time and memory, a fun way, I hope. And even looking at things like the remote viewing experience, the remote viewing experiments that the government, U.S. government, was doing with Stanford back in the 1970s and 80s, and probably still doing. We only found out about it because of a Freedom of Information Act in the 1990s. But what they discovered in those remote viewing experiments is that consciousness is non-local, meaning that consciousness is not imprisoned within this brain of ours, but can move and can look around various locations on the earth. And the reason the CIA was very interested in doing these experiments and this research was because they understood the Soviet Union to be doing the same kind of experiments with ESP and psychics. They're trying to weaponize psychic ability. Because wouldn't it be a good idea to look into the war room of the Pentagon, the locked war room of the Pentagon, where they don't allow phones or cell phones or anything? No cell phones back then, but you know what I mean. Look at underground bunkers, look at troop movements around the world. And so the CIA very much wanted to see if this was a possibility. And with the research they did with Stanford, not only showed that consciousness can move around location, look into underground bunkers. They got in big kerfuffle with the National Security Administration, because the CIA and their experiments with remote viewing accidentally uh, remote viewed a underground bunker that they were looking at Soviet satellites, and they saw top secret files, like names of files and programs and name badges of people who worked there. And the National Security Administration thought the CIA had a mole and created quite a problem for a few months. So we know through research, through experiments, by your tax dollars, that consciousness is non-local, meaning it moves around. But through those experiences, we also found that consciousness can move forward and backwards in time. And so you put that together with all these other theories of people way smarter than me are still scratching their heads and arguing about it, looking at the math and saying, well, is this a computer simulation? Is this the multiverse? Is this the holographic universe? And they're looking at reality and consciousness and time. And it doesn't seem to fit our kind of natural experience of time and reality. And so it becomes very, very fascinating because a lot of these researchers and books that have been written about past life regression have been done by people with extraordinary degrees in science. And well, one of the most famous, uh, uh, Brian Weiss. Uh, People know his book, Many Lives, Many Masters. Now, he's written many books. He's written about 10 or 12 books over the last 30 years. He just did a workshop, 83 years old. He's still out there doing this work, but he just did a big workshop at Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. Probably we'll do one next summer if he still is with us. But he wrote a book that came out in 1988, Many Lives, Many Masters. Now, what's fascinating about Dr. Brian Weiss is that he is a left brain analytical academic. That's what he calls himself. And he has a chemistry degree from Columbia University. He has a medical degree from Yale. And then he went into psychiatry. He was doing a lot of the early research into Alzheimer's back in the 70s, 1970s, 1980s. He was on track of writing books and papers and researching, maybe, and now I'm just throwing this out there, but maybe on track for the Nobel Prize in medicine or science around maybe whatever discoveries he might have made around Alzheimer's and dementia and that kind of thing. So he was working with a patient. He was head of psychiatry at Mount Sinai in Miami, Florida. Now, again, this is a position you get just because you know somebody or you're somebody's nephew or somebody owes you a favor. You have to know what you're doing. And somebody who's gotten their medical degree from Yale is probably going to fit that bill. So he's head of psychiatry. He's working with a woman who is dealing with some great fear and some great anxiety, dealing with panic attacks. And he's working with her for a year, and he's not really seen any improvement. Doesn't seem to be helping her. And he thinks, well, maybe what we should do is some hypnotherapy and regress back to cause, a fancy term, but maybe let's go back to maybe childhood, see if there's any sort of issue that needs resolution and healing. So they do this regression work, but she keeps going past childhood. She goes past being a newborn. She goes into a past life of being in Egypt. Now, what Dr. Brian Weiss knows, as did Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung and Milton Erickson and Laura Pearls, who helped develop Gestalt therapy, all these people over the last 100 years have been saying, is that the subconscious mind speaks to us in symbolism, metaphor, dreams, imagination, and we can speak back to it in metaphor and symbolism and imagination and storytelling. That's one of the great healing techniques of hypnotherapy, symbolic, metaphoric healing. And it works. And so that's what Brian Weiss thought was happening. Her subconscious mind is creating a metaphoric, symbolic way of resolving the hurt and pain she is going through. And she had this great healing experience with this past life regression back to Egypt. Initially, Dr. Brian Weiss thinks it's kind of a symbolic, metaphoric healing, the subconscious mind healing. So he goes with them. They set up another appointment next week, and they do it again. It's past life regression. While she's creating such deep emotional release, emotional healing, that he finally has to come to the conclusion that what she's experiencing is real. So not only the emotional healing she experienced, but she is also getting detailed information about Egypt back in whenever it was 8 BC, whenever her experience was happening, 500 BC. And now understand this was before the internet. This is 1980. No internet, no cell phones, no texting, none of that. Our internet was the Encyclopedia Britannica, this 32, 34 volume set. That was our internet. That was the entirety of the world's information. And whatever chapter they had about Egypt is all we knew about Egypt, unless you're an Egyptologist or you're an archaeologist. And so through Brian Weiss's connections at Yale, he started asking Egyptologists and archaeologists about the information she was getting. So yeah, that's actually really rare information that she would be having. She was also started to get information about Brian Weiss's own private life, information that nobody could have had. Again, there's no internet, there's no access to this information. Private medical records kind of things, like especially like having a child die early on, like 1 year old, a child of his. There's no obituary, happened in a different state. And so finally he has to come to the conclusion, putting all this information together, her healing, all the information about Egypt, all the information about his own private life. And he did the Sherlock Holmes thing of, when you eliminate the impossible, whatever's left over, however improbable, has to be the answer, has to be the solution. And so he has to come to the conclusion that what she's experiencing is real. She's experiencing a real memory of a life she lived. And in 1988, he authored the book Many Lives, Many Masters. Now, he was, like I said, potentially, he was on track of great scientific renown, helping with dementia and Alzheimer's. He put that all on hold. He put that and went on a totally different track of past life regression. You don't get tenure. You don't get a fancy job because you all of a sudden start talking about past life regression in 1988. He put his career in great jeopardy because there was no obvious windfall that he was going to become super popular and Oprah would like his book and all that kind of stuff. And so he put his career in jeopardy by putting that book out there, but he thought that was the truth. He thought it was important to put out there. Another person, Dr. Michael Newton, again, very similar experience where he accidentally, quote unquote, accidentally regressed somebody, not back to a past life, but back to that life between lives, that spirit world, that soul. Yeah, extraordinary book. And what's fascinating about this book, this is a one person's experience. When he worked with this person back in 1969, accidentally regressed them, and they again did such deep healing work that Dr. Michael Newton wondered if other people could do this kind of healing work. Could he do this on purpose? It was accidental. Could he find a way of helping people get back in this relaxed state of mind and body to access this spiritual state? And so he started working with people. He developed this protocol to help people. And as he's working with people over the 1970s, people were having similar experiences to each other. People didn't know each other. Again, there's no internet, there's no texting, there's no WhatsApp, there's nothing, no YouTube. This is all people who don't know each other, and yet they're having similar experiences to each other. And so then he starts investigating that. He did 20 years of research with thousands of people, 365 days a year. He's not working every day, but you can see how over 20 years, you could be working with 1,000 people, 2,000 people. And he collects their experiences, their wisdom, and he produces the first book in 1992, Journey of Souls. He then does another 10 years of research with people, and the second book, Destiny of Souls, comes out in 2002 or so, and that's 30 years of research, and it's like twice as big as the first book. And since then, other books have come out, and the Michael Newton Institute. Michael Newton passed away in 2011 or so. The Michael Newton Institute has come out with books. So it's been like 60 years of research, working with tens of thousands of people around the world who all have similar experiences to each other. And so after a while, and then there's the work of Dolores Cannon, and the work of, off planet, if you will, non-Earth or parallel universes or the multiverse, or however you want to explain it, of that kind of experience. And so after a while it sounds crazy, again, this was a kind of a long, talk about this work. But this isn't just somebody having an interesting dream. People are having these experiences that not only in terms of like even the work of Ian Stevenson, uh, who was doing forensic investigative work around reincarnation stories in the Middle East and India back in the 1960s, 1970s. People, children in small villages who were having, experiences of being in another village hundreds of miles away that they could never experience, with nicknames and just knowing all about the family and all this fascinating stuff. And after a while, it's just like you just get, even if like let's say 90% of it's all wrong, that still means 10% of it's right. And there's this great quote by William James, who's one of the modern day pioneers of modern psychotherapy. And he said that to prove that all crows are not black, you only need one white crow. And with this work of past life regression and life between lives and the spiritual work that we're talking about, like how many white crows do you need to prove that all crows are not black? How many experiences of people creating healing as well as the information they may be gaining that they can prove of, of certain ancient wisdom and archaeology, people having similar experiences to each other. After a while, they're how many stories, reincarnation stories that get proven?
Right.
How many of these stories do you need before, again, even if like the work of Ian Stevenson and all these reincarnation stories, even if he was like wrong 99% of the time, he got it all wrong. The investigative work was flawed. It still means that at least one or two stories were right. And like, how many stories of reincarnation do you need before how many Bigfoot do you need to see before you say, oh yeah, Bigfoot exists? You need one Bigfoot to show that Bigfoot exists. And so same with this work. If you can prove to us, well, that was made up and that was fake, okay, that one was, but not all of them. It's not possible. And so what you experienced in terms of these other experiences of different realms, different worlds, different dimensions, however you want to describe it, is quite fascinating, because why not? Certainly, science indicates that this is possible. Did you have an experience where you pulled back the veil and got a glimpse of that? You know, maybe just for an hour or so, or an hour or two, but you got a glimpse of it, and it's quite extraordinary to have that experience.
Yeah, very, very healing. Um, very healing for me. I knew that, like I said, from the beginning, I was told that I volunteered.
Hmm.
So clearly, that eventually I was just, and that's just
Yeah,
kind of the vibe, the energy that it gave, right?
yeah, yeah.
Saying I volunteered to come here. Okay,
Mhm. Yeah,
coming from where?
yeah.
And so on in my near death experience, I also learned that there are tons and tons and tons of places to live, to work. There's more life out there beyond what we can ever imagine.
Mhm.
That's just in this universe.
Yeah.
You know, um, so seeing those two past lives, it made sense. It made sense why. And folks listening, I'm definitely the type of person where I'm not gonna just believe something just because someone my own work and stuff like that. So, anyways, so I don't know why I said that. I actually lost my train of thought in that direction, but I have another direction that
Yeah.
I'm saying is it made sense why as a kid I was always, even till this day, like I was always so pulled towards space. Like how some folks they just feel so at home in nature, and or they feel so at home in water.
Mhm.
They just it's so
Or
easy.
afraid of water, even.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that there could be former reasons for that,
Yeah.
right? Multiple reasons. For example, biggest reason, um, that I just happen to think a lot is like, a lot of them, what they came from water. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe in their past lives on Earth, they're just very into water. I don't know, but it never did anything for me. I just felt empty. Like I may hug trees now and things like that, just because I understand plants now as also living beings, living incarnates things. They make noise. They communicate with each other. We just can't hear it in our frequencies. They communicate with each other. And plants, if you hook it up to something, you can hear the noise that it makes. It's so beautiful.
Mhm.
It's so beautiful. I heard it the other day, yesterday actually. Um, they connected a plant to something so that human ears can hear it. It was so.
Yeah.
But the point of the matter is I was I was always drawn to space as a kid. So seeing these past lives, seeing that I was traveling with ships,
Yeah.
uh, that made so much sense. Why that's why I felt. But also to see that, and this is where it gets you know, a little emotional, which is fine. But emotions are healthy and beautiful and natural. They're subjective. There's no emotions are bad. But anyways, emotions are neutral. Um, in the second life that I was shown,
Mhm.
to see um to see a little being, these the second life that I was shown, it's like a humanoid.
Mhm.
Um, it looked like what we define as a Pleiadian.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you look that up, they look very much like us. There's even some talk saying that they helped seed us,
Mhm.
which does make a lot of sense. But uh, it looked like a Pleiadian,
Yeah.
right? And so, but in to see a little, what we would define a little kid run up to me and hug me, it was mine. It was my kid.
Yeah.
And then you had a significant other, the way that significant other looked at. See, on this earth, in this incarnate, I don't know what that's like. I don't know what family's like. I don't know what a mother's like. I don't know what a father's like. I don't know what a like. I don't know what a sister's like. I don't know that. That's something that I've always, like my whole life, even though I'm super happy in life now and I'm living my dream, I always feel orphaned. I always do.
Yeah.
And that's for extreme neglect, but it's also for, this is this dimension, this planet that I'm on, this is not, something I'm used to just yet.
Yeah.
So of course I feel this orphan, when you're away from home.
Yeah.
Some folks call it homesickness. I call it longing.
Yeah.
Um, as if, because I don't want to put it as if there's something wrong with home. Like, no, no, no. I can be present here, do what I came here to do, and also it's home. Do it all the time here on Earth. When we go up to college or
Yeah.
states. We go back home for Christmas. You know what I mean? There's that feel. But anyways, um, so to see that,
Yeah.
I knew, just because I know that there's so much possibility, that there's no way all of my lives I've just been so neglected. There's no way. But it started to feel that way. So to see that in both lives, I had significant others, but to see in that other life that I had a family that loves
Mhm.
me,
Yeah.
like I don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
So to see that, it was very healing. It made a lot of things make sense, and it gave me even a deeper grace on myself to be like, no, hey, I'm not from Earth, so that's why I'm the best at, like, I don't know how to human a lot of the times. I don't
Yeah.
do that, and that's okay. But to see, oh, man, wow, like I have a family that loves me.
Mhm. Yeah.
And in that life, I explored free will as well. Like explored on my free will as well. The way they looked at me and the way my kid came and hugged my leg, it's like as if I was gone for, uh, more than a short period.
Yeah.
In that first life, that was the first life that I was shown. I'll share that one a little bit. as soon as I got into the hypnosis and saw this other planet that I was on, I started crying.
Yeah.
Like physically, I was physically crying. Not in the past life. I was crying
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
hypnosis. And I felt alone. I felt like I was exiled. And
Mm.
it looked like I don't think it was Mars, but it looked like Mars when it had an atmosphere and life.
Yeah.
It looked kind of like that, but I truly don't think it was Mars. But it was this big black structure in front of me, and there was a spaceship behind me, and of course that was mine. And it's like I was scared to go in that big black structure.
Yeah.
Um, and it's rumored that, Mars, their life ended up going underground. But I don't, so I was like, could it have? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. So, that'd be cool if it was, but so I'm like, I either was exiled, I either was a menace to society and got kicked out, and I had to leave, or I was meant to go into this 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 black structure and explore, but I was too scared.
Mm.
And so we fast forwarded a couple hours, um, like under hypnosis. He had fast forwarded me a couple hours. The person doing my hypnosis. His name is Danny, by the way. His info in the episode description below. Um, yeah, and then I see that I'm in space, and I see that I'm hovering over a sun, gaining power, gaining fuel or of some sort, to
Yeah.
further explore. But I that was just so it felt so natural to
Yeah.
me. It felt like this is what I do. I explore. And that makes so much sense why as a kid, like people see a lot of times, like with people's past life, they connect so many dots to how they were as a child for programming,
Right.
on this earth came
Yeah.
upon them, the things that we used to naturally be drawn to, a lot of that can be connected,
Yeah.
and so it made so much sense. But um and to see a significant other now, this life, this first life that I was shown majority of it, um, it was more in first person. I couldn't see my body.
Mm. Okay.
It's like I not saying my body wasn't there. It's just like for some reason
Yeah.
I just
Just point of view. Yeah.
yeah, like how us humans like how we just look down. I couldn't look down. I know that I was in a humanoid figure though, what we call the mammal figure. A lot of beings have what's called a mammal figure. That's just better to
Yeah.
operate with. But not every being has that. A mammal figure, folks, is the arms, the legs, those limbs, and the thumbs, or of some sort, fingers of some sort. But anyways, um, I came back to the planet after, and I shouted out, "I'm home."
Yeah.
I don't think that the feeling that I had, it didn't mean that I was actually like home planet per se, but home as in like I'm away from what I first experienced, that feeling of exile and loneliness and fear, you know. But this planet, it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
It was at nighttime, I assume. It was black structures. It was very technologically advanced. I wish Earth structures looked like that. I was pretty on. It looked very technologically advanced, and it's like I was living like on a balcony, a housing wise. Like it was a very nice house, right? Or living space. And I see my significant other, and because my significant other looked like that, and that significant other smiled,
Mm.
and to see that, that's just so beautiful. But that was not definitely not a human. Um, I tried to, I even went on to look at, okay, I like put the description in AI description in Google to try to find what is this
Right.
species. I could not find it anywhere. It looked close to some pictures of what look up tall whites, folks, tall white aliens.
Mm.
They're called the tall whites. It looked kind of like that, but it was not them at all. That's just the closest thing. But so I don't have a name for this entity. Um, I don't have a name for it, but it was really beautiful. But I do have a name for the lady.
Yeah.
I was even told way before this that I may have me. It wasn't may have been. It was I was told that I have been a plebeian. I was like, sure. I didn't
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
believe it. I didn't knock it, but I didn't believe it. But in those the plebeians they look a lot like but they don't. And I just remember in the hypnosis saying they don't go by our genders because I was trying to describe who I was, what I was, but I just kept saying, and it's like I couldn't control it per se, but I just kept saying they don't go
Yeah.
by our definition of genders. I couldn't control like I was like, how do you describe that? We're so used to the human binaries, right? Oh, male, female, intersex. We're not used to like, okay, guess what? What if how do we describe something outside of that?
Right.
But I can say at least humanly, um, I was some type. Folks would define me. Humans would define me. I would define as more of a male,
Okay.
and my significant other was a more female. Um, but you don't. It doesn't have to. They don't care about. Oh, you're two males or you're two
Yeah.
females. They don't care about that. Because Earth is the only place that cares. That Earth is the only place for. Anyways, but that's really interesting because in this incarnate, I'm attracted only to males, right?
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see that, that different dynamic. But I had a family, Craig.
Yeah.
And I say had, I have a family because when I leave and go to the other side, I'm pretty sure I will still reconnect with them as we all are allowed to.
Right.
It's completely free will, and so I have a family.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a child. It made sense why, as a kid, I've always wanted a kid,
Yeah.
right? Like I've always wanted it. It makes sense because I know that emptiness because I was so full of it.
Yeah.
It makes sense, and so yeah, I that was just very healing because for a long time in my life I was very upset why I had this such deep wanting, even before all the trauma and abuse, you know, caught up to me from my parents, others, in this lifetime. Um, Craig, it made sense why, like, I always had this strong want for family, for children. I see now it wasn't necessarily a want; it was that I already had it.
Yeah.
I'm coming from that. I left that for little, to come here, volunteer, to help, whatever I came here to do.
Yeah.
But it was it was such a beautiful experience, and I knew Craig. I knew I wasn't from here,
Yeah.
but to see home just a little bit,
Yeah. You just
like
the flowers.
yeah, exactly, because I got, and I'm almost finished. I know I'm rambling. That's fine. Me and Craig booked a long
Yeah.
episode, but me and Craig we like to talk. But I was telling my therapist, I was like, this summer, which is now, I told her months ago before the summer, I was like, I just want to see, even if it's just the star system, even if it's just a glimpse, I want to see it. Because to know that you're not from here and to feel like such an orphan, but to not have any idea of what home is. I was like, it's starting to really, really, really get to me, and I'm gonna be honest, for me at least, well, it's vulnerability time. But for me in 2024, I tried to leave Earth. And my main reasoning for leaving Earth, for attempting to leave Earth, for
Yeah.
attempting to leave Earth, it was mostly because I wanted to go back home rather than leave Earth. It was about both. More of the motivation was, what is that? I had such a long, feeling like an orphan 24/7 does not feel good. And though I'm able to be happy and feel like an orphan at the same time, like I don't wait for me to not feel like an orphan. Like, when I'm happy. Um, I didn't know that then that I could embody both. I didn't know. I was like, it's either either.
Yeah.
So I let myself feel not like an orphan, kind of, which was I was just suppressing it, and then I just let myself feel because I'm all like, it's gotta let yourself feel. But you know, I saw and I got to see two places, right? And there's a reason why I got to see those two places. I don't know the reason,
Mhm.
um, but I got to see just like made so much sense, and it means something to me because I always felt as though like because in this lifetime I don't have significant others,
Yeah.
that I may be just spiritually, morally, just something about my energy is so unworthy of love,
Yeah.
you know? And so to see those past lives, those two lives where I had love so much,
Mhm.
you
Yeah, I appreciate so much I know it's the name of your show, but the vulnerability you're having of telling us that because it's obviously was extraordinarily emotional for you to see these things. And I can't help to think of the learning experience of learning about love. Yes, obviously you have family, you have a significant other, you have children, you have friends. But what is love like when you don't have those things? What would it be like to now understand love from the perspective of somebody who does not have those things anymore, or at least in this incarnation or this role that you're playing? It's not like a video game, let's say, and you're like, okay, at 8 o'clock on Thursday night, where I'm going to play this video game with my friends. And last time we did this whole thing with this. This time, we still want to learn about love, but let's all play these characters, you know. And if it's for learning and growth, and I find it interesting, it's like, well, maybe because your experience with those other worlds, so other universes, there was so much love with family and friends and children that it's like, you know what, you got to go somewhere else. You had so much love and in the mountains, you now got to go to the desert, and go somewhere totally different to shake it all off and say, okay, here's let's make and let's amp it up a bit. Let's make this as difficult as possible. You know, uh, you might here be getting your master's degree, and certainly the math of a mathematician getting their master's degree is different than somebody in first grade learning about 2 + 2 = 4. And so as we grow and learn, it's like, yeah, maybe the lessons become more difficult in order to accelerate understanding and learning, or just to have the difference. Because it's sort of like to be a little bit broad about it.
Well,
Well,
Craig,
and
before you
oh,
uh, speak that, there's something that you mentioned that it made me think of, and I do believe it to be true now because you just said the confirmation. I always tell the universe,
yeah,
higher self, or you are telling me something, send me a confirmation. Um, and so, Craig, I was told that throughout the eons that I've been alive,
hmm
existing, right? Um, because folks, fun fact, they probably have been around for eons.
yeah,
But anyways, I was so privileged in love and very greatly appreciated it. However, you know, when something's perfect, it can you can only experience a certain amount of
mhm,
appreciation in the realm of perfection. So how can you increase that?
right,
Appreciation is to give you the illusion of it all being gone. Now, once I return, I appreciate so much more than I ever could have because I know what it's like to be without it.
yeah,
That makes sense, right? Kind
yeah,
of like that duality, as above, so below.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and just like an example of wealth and abundance. Yes, obviously, to learn and understand about wealth and abundance, yes, you need the extravagance of having the yacht and the private jet and the home in the south of France and the apartment overlooking Central Park and the whole thing. But to understand about wealth and abundance and money, would it also not be helpful to understand what it'd be like to live in adjunct poverty on the streets of Calcutta, homeless? Would it not be helpful to understand what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck as a single mom, with three jobs, or as a serf back in the 1600s in England or something? Would not all these experiences, even though the person's not wealthy, it's not a king or a queen or a billionaire, but would not all these other experiences of maybe poverty also help inform and teach about wealth and abundance and money? And so also about love. Obviously, having love around you and family and significant others and children and friends teaches you a lot about love, helping each other, neighbors and community. What about taking all that away?
Right.
You know, or now that you do not have it, you're starting from scratch. How do you build it when it's not handed to you in a loving family? You know, with loving parents and loving siblings and loving friends. W- You know, what if you have to build, from the wreckage? And so again, it's like, okay, well, if you had extraordinary experiences in the trees and the mountains, well, what's it like being in the desert with no water? And then now let's see how this, and not to test you or to be mean about it. So like, okay, well, like you've had this experience of algebra, now let's move on to trigonometry
Yeah.
or geom.
It's a great experience it's a great experience to evolve in and be more immersed in love
Yeah.
for me. Because like you were saying, you made great points. You always you always do. um, tell Craig to restart his podcast. Is a $100. If someone's walking on the street, right, they find $100. Someone who is homeless finding $100 bill versus someone who's a billionaire finding $100 bill, it's gonna feel different. They're gonna experience a feeling way different because one has it in abundance, where he honestly could just keep walking.
Mhm.
The billionaire could just keep walking. It's nasty, gross, have tons of money. But a homeless person, you know what I mean? It will feel so much different. Someone that doesn't have, it will feel so much different.
Yeah.
Experienced a lot differently that
Yeah.
$100 bill. One may have a greater appreciation. They're not saying that they're bad people. Um, in this scenario, this billionaire is not a bad person.
Yeah. Okay.
But okay, that was all. I was joking, folks. Not all billionaires. But we're just being specific in this case. It will be experienced.
Right. Yeah. It's still wealth, it's still abundance, it's still money, but these two experiences have something to teach them because maybe, you have so much money that $100 bill on the ground is like, yeah, you might pick it up. So it's also like you hear about the people where it's, and I know billionaire gets thrown around a lot, but let's just say millionaire. Oftentimes these people make it to millionaire status because of they're picking up the quarters on the sidewalk, and they shop with coupons, and they wait till Wednesday double coupon day at the grocery store, or they only buy things on, and so they understand to manage money. And so by the end of it, then they get to donate to the university, or they get to set up the trust fund for the grandkids or the whatever. And so, and of course, not all wealthy people are evil. We just hear about them in the news because it's more fascinating to hear about that than the people who set up the charities and do the good work and donate all their money. We hear the stories about the crazy rich lady who who wills all her wealth, her inheritance to her cat, or her dog or something, and then that's crazy. It's wild. So of course that's the story. You know, willing all your money to start a nursing school or an engineering school at the local community college because they don't have the funding of a Harvard or a Yale or something. You don't hear much about that because it's not. It's interesting. That's isn't that nice?
Right,
But it's not
right, right.
crazy as a lady who gave her cat $1 million. Yeah. And so I don't think we hear about that. Because I think it's maybe outside of our scope. It makes sense to us as human beings to help people. Well, of course, you gave money to the school or to the homeless person or to the charity or to the homeless shelter or to the hospital or whatever. But to hoard it and to do evil with it, that I think is such against our human instincts that it's like, oh, that's wild. And that person doing that. And I think that's why it attracts our attention because it's so far outside of our ability to understand what they're doing. That seems foreign. That seems alien to us, you know. And so, yeah, maybe of course, we're talking broadly about money, but what about love? Could you be getting a degree in love? How would that work?
Very great. I'm gonna meditate on that. You know, experiencing love, how X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, yeah,
You said something great. You said something powerful to my spirit. Um, love it when that happens. That means that it's edifying for my soul.
yeah,
We get revelation about it. But what does love think about?
yeah, yeah. I mean, if it's handed to you, it's like lovely and nice, and it builds you up. But it may be you had those experiences as training ground. This is what it is. How do you create that unconditionally when you know it's not going to come back to you? Can you still give it when you know it's not coming back to you, as in the form of a significant other, or children, or friends, or deep family?
I think there's more spiritual truth to it. I know it. Um, because in the past life, um, after finished crying, which was very short, um, I finished crying and had those exile, fear, and worthlessness. Um, I went numb.
Mm,
So the only reason I'm able to say I know was glitched in love is because looks on those other entities' faces. They saw, that was the love, but I was not able to feel
yeah,
that was very strategic. That I was not able to feel that all of a sudden, as soon as I left that first planet, I did not feel it. I was very, I don't want to say numb in a negative way, so I would say neutral, right? So I was not able to experience emotion of, that kid, of leg, but to know that,
yeah,
that
intellectually, yeah,
exactly to know that action, the look on their face, that is beautiful. So,
yeah,
Craig,
yeah,
you know, Craig, thank you. You've been
yeah. You're,
just very, you gave me something there. Really did something that I've been needing to hear
mhm.
because the universe always quickly confirms things, whether it's through a random stranger or just randomly walking up and telling me exactly what the universe has been telling me. I'm like, I was like, oh, I don't tell
Yeah,
them that, but
yeah,
this is one thing that this is the only thing that's taken me long to confirm, and I think he was waiting for me to have that past life. So, Craig, thank you because
yeah,
you helped reignite my discipline and excitement to get the past life hypnosis.
mm,
also allowed me to schedule another episode with you so that we can talk
Yeah.
that revelation that you gave. Greg, I've been asking that for about
Oh, wow.
2.5 years, going on 3.
Yeah.
But I want you to know, thank you. I've never waited this long for a compliment. So I seriously thank you. Were the person to give that to. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. You're a wonderful human being. You're a beautiful soul. So I love talking with you. And yeah, I guess right place, right time. So I'm glad we set this up.
I'm glad we did too. Um, Craig, I'm just speechless right now. Speechless. I really needed this.
You're welcome.
I feel like I can life better now.
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled that you have the strength to put this out there too, because I think other people need to hear it too. If they're still listening to this episode, it resonates with them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you,
Yeah.
Craig. Craig, I'm gonna close out the episode, but stay on for a couple more
Sure.
seconds.
You bet.
Um, folks, stay tuned for next episode. Check out Craig's links in the episode description below, and also check out Danny's links in the episode description below if you want to schedule a past life regression. He also does other things as well, like breath work. He has the plethora of things that he's trained in it as well. So he's a licensed. Yes, he's not just a random person. So I highly recommend it. Craig and Danny's information is in the episode description below. Go check it out. We're just gonna close this out. See you next time, folks. Whatever that